any questions you might have. But I'd love your perspective throughout the course of it.
Okay.
Clayton, tell me more about you. I mean, you run your own company, I think, right?
Yes, I do.
Was it accounting? Is that what it was? I think I looked it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
accounting and taxes and a couple other things. Do legal field and a couple other things.
And any particular, what are the particular types of clients that you focus on? Is there a particular industry or size?
I focus on small businesses.
Okay, gotcha. All right, good to have you. Well, I'm going to go ahead and run this. And if other people join in, we'll try to catch them up if appropriate. But today's episode is, when did a decision start feeling heavier than the information justified? It wasn't about it being wrong. It's not about it being risky. It's just heavier than it was supposed to be. So the question I would ask to everybody is, how are decisions feeling in your business right now? Have you ever been in a situation, and I don't necessarily want you to share it in the chat or the comments, but have you ever had a situation, or are you in a situation right now where just decisions feel just so much heavier, slower, like they're stuck, like a stick stuck in the mud, harder to defend than they used to be? Too complicated. Because that feeling has a name, and we're going to find that together today and kind of explore what that looks like. So don't answer the question. Just kind of keep that in your mind, what that feeling is. So
Okay.
yeah, and please feel free to share. Clayton, is yourself? How many more do you have on your team? Do you have partners that you work with on a regular basis?
No, it's just me.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough. So here's the question. Generally speaking, how many people on your team would describe your top priority the same way right now? So Clayton, if it's just yourself, maybe not necessarily so relevant, but maybe even think about some of the people that you work with, or just for anybody else who might listen in on one of the replays. If you could think about all the people on your team right now, and you ask them to write down one single word, don't have to answer it. Ask them to write down one single word. What would they write down as the priority for their organization right now? And do you think they would all say the exact same thing? It's not whether they would necessarily agree with that priority, whether they would say it exactly the same way or list the exact same word. You kind of do that math in your head. If you take your top priority, write it on a whiteboard, is everybody else saying the same? Would they even use the same words or be in the same ballpark? Most people already know, most leaders already know the answer is no. And that gap right there, that's where decision weight comes from, because everybody's looking at something different. And here's a question that lands pretty hard for leaders. If something was costing you margin or profitability right now, would you see it before the number changed? Because most leaders, in my experience, in over a couple of years of working in businesses, most leaders find out when the results arrive, not before. And it's not that you don't have good people. You've got great people. You have got a good strategy. You have meetings. You discuss this stuff. You have alignment, or what looks like it. But something's costing margin right now that you cannot see. You find out when the number changes, not before. Oftentimes, people think this is a leadership issue. It's not. It's a visibility problem, and it has a structure. It's the same reason people will write down different words as to what the priority for the organization is. That gap. So if you feel like chiming in, Clayton, or anybody else, drop a yes in the chat if you've ever found out about a margin problem after the number had already moved. As new at the end of the quarter, at the end of the month, at the end of a year, you look at that and you say, wait, why is my margin, my profit, not where it's supposed to be? The first time you saw that was after the numbers have already shown up on a dashboard or in a spreadsheet or in a bank account. Here's the structure for that. We call that the C cycle, strategy to execution to EBITDA. And you can replace EBITDA with profitability as well, if you'd like, or effect. Most leaders manage the third one. Hey, do I have enough profit coming in the door? Do I have enough EBITDA? They look at the number, they look at the outcome, but the weight you felt in the slides 1, 2, and 3, that doesn't start with the number itself. It starts at the bridge, the space between what was decided and how it gets interpreted across the functions. It erodes, it goes away, it leaks when people write different words as their priority. And by the time the weight is obvious, the fracture has been building for 60, 90, 180, 365 days. It's been there a long time. And that discomfort that I know I felt when I was running companies is not a coincidence. It's got a location. And this framework that we're showing you shows you where to look. John, Clayton, any questions so far? Any thoughts? Making sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So here's what that bridge to that breakage feels like in practice. That's what I'm going to show you in a second here. Revenue sees one version of risk, delivery sees another version of risk, finance sees another version of risk, operations sees another version of risk. And that's why they're all putting different words on that board as to what is the priority. And none of those 4 people are lying. Any of the people in the organization, very rarely are they actually lying. Very rarely are they wrong. They're each carrying a real version of what is actually happening, the truth that they see. But when nobody reconciles those views, those truths that they all see, one decision arrives that touches all of them, then a decision lands on one person, you as a leader. Because you say, hey, this is where we're going to go, but they're all seeing a slightly different version of what that truth is, and that's why they wrote the different words on that whiteboard, on that piece of paper. Because even though you wrote down, we want X, they're writing Y and Z, because they see different operating realities. That is the weight of a leader. It's not necessarily yours to carry, though, but it's yours to see. Because it's a systemic problem. It's not a person problem. It's not a leader problem. So if I were to ask a question of everybody, just to kind of deepen how this really shows up, which function in your business is carrying the risk right now that the others do not fully see? Clayton, I'd be curious for you in working with small businesses, especially if you're doing accounting pieces. Maybe there's a client that comes to mind right now. Is there a function that one of those businesses is carrying that has lots of weight that the other parts of the organization are not talking about, they're not seeing, they're not addressing, that you might see for them?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
And how do they address that? Do they just kind of let it keep rolling? Is that sort of the default standard?
Sometimes they do, yes.
Okay, fair enough. Well, here's what that visibility looks like when we measure it. This is what we call a friction map, and this is one individual leader. It's what they perceive as the truth. And this is why they wrote the word that they would. Their interpretation of how the business is running across these 15 different dimensions. Now, I know those letters are kind of small. I really want you to kind of see more about the shape. Right? Strategy alignment up here, market growth up here, market strength, financial health. You can see these numbers out there are kind of out at the edge. Those show confidence for this particular leader in those areas. Those are all pretty solid. Customer experience, where's customer experience? Over here. Business agility over here. Those dips are significant. You can see customer loyalty, product innovation, revenue expansion. Those are the things that this person starts to see as more of the gap in what's happening in the reality of the business. And those are real to them. They're not in a quarterly slide deck, and they're not in a team update, because this is how they perceive things. And they're living under the surface quietly before they become a number. So before this, the leader had never seen this shape before because it's all internal. It's kind of subconscious to a large degree. And not because they weren't paying attention, but nobody had ever shown it to them before. So if I were to ask a question of everyone here, what's the one area in your business you already know is weak, but nobody is saying out loud yet? Because this is probably a source of frustration for people. Clayton, were you going to say something?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. So watch what happens when you put the leader's map next to what the whole team sees. You can see the whole team. I'm going to give you a bigger version of this in a second here, but I really just want you to notice the shapes. Are they exactly the same shape? They are not. Same company, same strategy meeting, same nodding in the room. Everyone's saying, hey, we understand what we're aligned on. This is what we're doing. This is the vision and the mission of our company. But are they seeing the same problems in that company? Not at all. Again, nobody's wrong. They're operating from their own reality. Those gaps where team communication seems to be higher for the team, but lower for that individual leader. Higher for the leader on brand strength, lower for the team. Look at these things up here. Those are all pretty solid. Not so much for the rest of the team. Customer experience, business agility, quality assurance. Nobody's fighting. Nobody would say they're misaligned if you ask them in a room, because they all have different pictures in their heads of what the strategy means on a Tuesday afternoon or a Thursday afternoon for that matter. But that gap right there is between those two shapes is where all the EBITDA, all the profit, everything is leaking out the door, and it's long before it ever shows up in a number and before anybody ever calls it a problem. So the question to think about here is pick one person on your leadership team. You're not trying to blame them. Just pick somebody on a leadership team that you have today. Do they see the business the same way you do right now? And how can you be certain? How are you certain? Because if you don't, it's like the gray versus the green here. Let's dig into that a little bit deeper. This is the bigger version of that same map. So now you can start to see the labels. Question here is not whether this gap exists in a business. The question is actually how wide is it right now? The gap is not a gap in effort. The gap is not a gap in talent or commitment. It's a gap that each person believes the strategy actually means, what the strategy actually means in their work. Every week it goes unmeasured. This person is deciding based on strategy alignment being very high. This person is deciding based on strategy alignment being mediocre. This is where they're saying, hey, market growth is strong for us as a company. This is the person deciding, market growth is questionable for us as a company. They're making different decisions, but they're still aligned in what the goal is. They're just making different decisions because they're solving different problems. Every week it goes unmeasured, it gets wider. The work keeps moving. Everyone keeps working hard. The team keeps executing, and the gap keeps compounding, and the numbers will show it shortly. Here's why that keeps staying hidden. Because verbal agreement is not alignment. Congruence is when behavior matches intent. If I were to say, to my family, hey, let's go to Disney World. There are 5 different people, including myself, who've got 5 different concepts of how we're going to do that. One person is the youngest in the family, thinks that we're going to jump on a cruise ship to do that. Well, I'm in North Carolina. We're going to be driving to Disney World. We're not going to be going on a cruise ship. The other one thinks we're going to be flying. Another one thinks we're going to drive. Another one thinks we're going to rent a vehicle. Another one thinks we're going to rent a camper. Who's wrong? Nobody yet. But they all have 5 different interpretations of how that's going to get done. We're aligned. We're just not congruent. We confuse agreement with alignment. Everyone leaves the room nodding. Everyone says yes. And we walk out feeling like, oh, this is handled. It's taken care of. But alignment is not what people say in the meeting. Alignment is what they do at TPM Wednesday, where nobody is actually watching. When they decide the way that everyone else expects them to decide. Verbal agreement is the beginning of drift. It's not the end of it. Decision variance is not a disagreement. It's the gap between what they actually believe and what is actually true. It will not close by having another meeting, because that's how we usually do it. Let's talk about this thing again. They're still interpreting it differently. It only closes when you can see it. When you can see, wait, why are you thinking of it this way? Why are you thinking of it this way? That is what closes the gap. So when is the last time your team left a meeting aligned and did something different anyway? Because I'll tell you, according to Harvard Business Review, 98% of companies will never do the same thing.
It's true.
Here's what it costs. There are only two ways this plays out. The undetected version is revenue misses that you didn't see coming, rework that nobody calls rework because they got to redo it again, a board conversation that you may not be ready for, decisions that felt harder than they should have for months before anything showed up in any numbers. Now, if it's detected, you own the narrative before the number changes, so you can start proactively changing how things are going. Your team realigns without getting to crisis mode. The forecast holds because the signal held up the way it was supposed to. Decisions feel lighter because the weight has a name and you course corrected. The bottom line is this is not a difference in effort. I will tell you, you might actually feel a lot lighter in the work that you do because it's not an intelligence issue. It's not a strategy issue. It's whether you could see it or not. It's my son going and buying a ticket to get on a cruise ship. And I'm like, why are you getting there? He never got on the cruise ship the first time to go to Disney World because I already saw that, no, we're not going on a cruise ship. So these are not a new program, not a transformation initiative. These are the 4 simplest moves that you can do right now to reduce the decision weight before it starts to compound. You name the friction before the decision arrives. You measure the interpretation variance, not just the agreement. You map the weight of the decisions, not just the decisions. And you build a system that you can see the signal before it becomes a number. None of those require more from you. You're already doing it. It just completes the cycle. They require you to look at a different layer. That's all you're doing. So a question for you and Clayton, if you'd like to share, I'd love to hear. But John, you're more than welcome to chime in as well. Which one of these 4 is your business or a business that you're working with? Which one are they not doing right now? And that they may already know or you already know? Where do you think people are
Most
getting
aren't
stuck?
doing number 1, so they can't
think-
get to the other ones.
You don't think anyone gets to the other ones? They get stuck at
I
number
don't
1?
know. I don't know how you can, right? If you aren't measuring that and understanding it, I don't know how you can get to 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what I've seen a lot of, but others may see it differently, right? If you want to actually do an automated process that takes 3 minutes to go through this whole cycle of 1, 2, 3, 4, 30 minutes, it's all completely automated. That's what that QR code leads you to.
Thank you.
Now, go back to slide 1, right? You felt the decision heavier than the information justified. Heavy, slow, stick in the mud. You're not sure your team would describe the priority the same way or write the same word. You could not say with certainty you would see the margin signal before the number changed or before the profit changed. You'd have to wait 90 days, half a year, maybe a whole year. That's not a leadership problem. It's a visibility problem. The core diagnostic that I just showed you, that QR code, right, shows you exactly where that weight is coming from, not as a survey, but as a map of your organization and how it actually interprets your strategy across 15 dimensions in 3 minutes. And here's how it changes things. This is a number that means a lot to a lot of organizations. 19 to 23% move in profitability or EBITDA. This has happened for clients in less than 90 days. That's what becomes available when you find the fracture before it becomes a financial event. So I'm going to leave you with this last slide here. 3 questions open this session. You already know your answers, or what might answers be for your clients. And if that's interesting to find out how to do this for your clients, feel free to send me a DM or in the follow-up email, feel free to ask. Or you can take this core diagnostic for yourself and see what they would go through. This is how you see where the weight is coming from before it shows up in the results. You scan the code, you go to carmo.net, and in 3 minutes, there's no sales call. It'll show you your map. Inside of about 7 to 10 minutes, you'll have the PDF delivered to your inbox. You can see what your friction map looks like. So before I end, I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has them. You're more than welcome to chat them to me if you'd like. But before you go, I'd love to hear in the comments here, what is the one thing you're walking away that you're thinking about now that you couldn't think about before we started this call? I'll stop it there. I'll leave the QR code up on screen. Clayton, any thoughts, questions? Was it a good use of time in terms of what you saw here for yourself or for clients? Did this?
It gives me some things to think about.
Okay. Well, happy to share more with you if you think this is something for for existing clients. There's something that sits in the background. It puts you in the driver's seat in terms of how to help them close those gaps, especially with the work you do with Legal Shield and your accounting work. John, any thoughts, reflections?
I love seeing you walk us through this. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you much, everyone. I'll end a little early here just so you can give you some time back, but thanks for sitting in.
Great show. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.